All right, guys. So we're looking farther and farther into this chapter. Pretty much done with all of it. So let's get this video done. And so we're talking about caucuses, and I know that sounds terrible to you because we had such a tough time with primaries and caucuses before. But it's pretty much the same kind of process. And this caucus is in Congress, right? Now the definition of it for Congress and for the House of Representatives is real simple: a group of members of Congress sharing some interest or characteristic. They think a certain way. So there are about 300 caucuses. So I'm like, whoa, 300 caucuses for less than 600 people, like two people each. But obviously, you have different members and different people who are like different things. Now, what they really do is like they pressure the committee meetings and hearings for votes on bills. They're like, let's push this particular thing. So you might be a member of a particular caucus and thinking. So like there's the Congressional Black Caucus, and they're like, okay, well, there's an issue about segregation or whatever it is. Let's push that. There's all kind of different caucuses that obviously that deal with particular interest groups. All right, so that's really important. Also, a caucus really can be way more and much more influential and effective than a lobbyist, because lobbyists are chasing from all the different kind of places, right? But if you are a Congress member and you already feel a certain way, guess what you have? You have the right to introduce bills anyway, and you have the right to vote on those bills and make them into law. So if you think strongly about something, then it ends up really working in your favor as a member of a caucus and a member of the House of Representatives. Is very different from a lobbyist who doesn't have those abilities, right? So that's what the caucus system looks like in the House of Representatives, all right? Now, as we keep going, we're going to talk about congressional staff, like who works for the congressman, who works for the members of Congress, right? First off, you have personal staff, and I'm not talking about butlers and maids and all that, all right? Get your head out the clouds. I know you want to be a congressman, so you have to do nothing. But no, it's not like that. What it is that they provide constituent service, right? And so what that means is that they deal with the constituents. They're the ones doing all the mailings and all that kind of stuff, setting up meetings, dealing with people who write, people who call in from the home constituency. Because you'll be in D.C. as a congressman, and you'll get a call, and you don't have to talk to you don't call the congressman's office or the congressperson's office and talk to them directly. You talk to someone on their staff, right? This is Congressman Johnson's secretary. How do you feeling today? Whatever it is. So they deal with that, and sometimes they deal with legislation where they go ahead and they bring forth ideas from other people to the Congress member, right? Now, then you have committee staff, right? And when you get on these smaller committees and everything, guess what ends up happening? You organize hearings. If you're a committee staff member, you help research and write legislation. These are the people who are actually writing the laws. And sometimes it's young people, it's pages, it's young folks just working hard, trying to get their foot in the door and learning and researching, right? And they're the ones who the lobbyists chase after. Lobbyists are like, "Come here, you are a committee member. Yes, you're on the staff of da 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 da," and you push that person because look, imagine, you know. Heidi Santos, right, and Amalia Garcia and those folks. They're 12th grade senators, right? So you're in a position where someone like that, like you might not be able to get to Heidi, you might not be able to get to Amalia, but let's say you get to, I don't know, Angelina, and Angelina goes and tells Sully, this is what this other person said, right? So that's what happens. So Angelina will represent the committee staff and be the middleman or middle person between the senator and obviously the lobbyists, all right? So that's how it works. Now, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about legislation and what happens. And how do we even get laws? Man, because it feels like it just magically happens, right? But it doesn't. It is a lot of work. And like a famous German once said, those who want to eat sausage or whatever. Anyway, I'll talk about that later. It's a little joke. All right, anyway, legislation, man. A bill, first you have a bill, and that's just a proposed law. That's something that you want to create. So that's the bill. Now, the thing about a bill is not everybody can just throw a bill out, all right? What happens is this. A bill can come from anywhere, but it cannot be introduced unless it's introduced by a member of the Congress, period, point blank. So a guy like me, Aaron Tielko, I'll be like, hey, there's a new bill. I want to make sure that, high school students get in the state of California or whatever federally get 10% more funding. Cool. Sounds great to me, and I want that to happen, but I can't introduce that. I have to send that through to a Congress member, all right? So that's what happens, right? Now, what usually happens is this. that thing comes to the member of Congress, comes to the senator, comes to the member of the House of Representatives, and then they go to their party leader and say, "Look, I received this bill from my constituents, or I've seen this particular bill, and I want to make this thing happen." And the party leader will say, "Nah, not gonna work. That doesn't sound right. We're not doing it." Or they'll say, "Yeah, screw it, let's do this." And so the party leader is the person who steers that whole process and gets everything going, right? So what happens is, in the process, it's weird and it's crazy and it's wild. So look, so you have the bill introduced. Then you go into the committee process. So after you introduce the bill, then you got to go into the committee. And so now you have the subcommittee. Then you have the a regular committee, one of the four committees we discussed. And then after you do that, then you got to go to the rules committee. After you do the rules committee, then you get to debate it on the floor. And then after you debate it on the floor, you get to vote for it. Boom. So that's how it goes. Remember this. Bill gets introduced. Subcommittee, do some language, clean it up. Go to a bigger committee, do some language, clean it up. Go to the rules committee, make sure everything's clean. Boom. Now we get to go and do what? Floor action. We get to debate back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. After the floor action is done with the full house, boom, we get to vote full house. Guess what? This thing passed. Is it done? No, play is not done. Now you got to take this thing all the way back to the Senate. Yeah. So then the Senate goes and they do, what do? They go ahead and they do subcommittee. They do committee. Then they do leadership and make sure that, hey, their leadership committees, everything's fine there. Then they debate full Senate. Back and forth, back and forth. And, remember, we could filibuster all night. So they go back and forth. They do that process. After they do that, then it goes into voting full Senate. And everything's passing. But no, not everything passed. The Senate wants to pass it, but there's some language that goes back, and then guess what we do again? Remember we talked about the conference committees between the two? So then you have a conference committee, clean up the language, and then you send it to the president. Great, it's a law. No, it's not. Because the president can mess around and be like, veto. You know what that means? I deny in the Latin. So the president can say no to it. So it went through the whole process in the House, went through the whole process in the Senate, and it gets to the president. The president says no, send it back, redo it. It goes back to conference, and then it comes back to him. Or the president can say, you know what, this is something I like, this something's good, right? And now do you see how this balance of power works out? You have a very representative group in the House of Representatives. Literally, that's why they call the House of Representatives, right? That's good. Very representative, 435 people, very representative, and they have constituents, and they create something. Then with that something they created, it may not be the exact same law at the end that it was as a bill when it was introduced. And you have to understand that. It doesn't stay static. Everybody wants to play with it, wants to do certain things because it represents the whole country, and that's how we get our laws. So a bill goes through a lot, and most bills don't become laws, and almost no bill becomes a law the way it looked on the first day it was introduced. It's not going to happen. Not with so many hands playing with it and making sure and checking to see that they can get something out of it, right? Now, usually presidents attempt to persuade Congress the way they want and the way Congress should be, right? And so they kind of want to be like, we're partners, we're working together, right? Now, another thing is this. The big thing with the president that the president can always throw in front of Congress is, without being threatening, he can always throw, I can veto that. And so let's just kind of do things that work for each other. Because why would we be antagonistic towards one another? We're pretty much trying to do the same thing. So when you create a law, don't create a law that you know I'm going to veto or come on. Be more reasonable. So it's vice versa. But remember, you have to be the kind of president that doesn't go around throwing around the veto power like a crazy person, like a dictator in a sense. Because you can mess around and it could just stall the whole government. And so that's what you got to look at. You have to look at that for the president. Now, let's talk about party and constituency and ideology. So these are three things. Party influence. Party leaders cannot force party members to vote a particular way, but many do always vote. I mean, you're going to vote against party lines. There's a reason why you're going to vote for party lines, because you are a Republican, and usually you vote based on the party lines. Now, the prime determinant of members' vote on most issues is ideology. Ideology is real simple. Let's put it this way. I'm a Democrat. And overall, I'm a Democrat, but I'm kind of like, we were talking about those whole blue dog and yellow dog, whatever kind of dog Democrats who kind of are thinking differently fiscally. As I'm making more and more money in my life, I'm starting to think that fiscal policy should look a certain way. And it shouldn't look the full Democratic way that it does now. I might kind of lean towards Republican. Now, if I become a member of Congress, I will vote based on that ideology. And that's what most Congress members vote, right? Now, most issues that are not salient, let's ignore it, right? So what happens is this. If you have a situation where it's not super important to your constituents or whatever's going on, most of the time the constituents get ignored. What does that mean? What it means is this. If there's something that your constituents don't care that much about, or they're not yelling and screaming about, it's not a big controversial issue, you just pick the way you want to pick. Now, imagine if you are in a particular section of Alabama. I'm picking Alabama. Yeah, real disrespectful. I think they're backwards. All right, it's on YouTube. Live that life. And so you live in a particular section of Alabama, very conservative, very backwards, and they're talking about this whole abortion thing. Now, me, I'm a pro-choice dude. Period, point blank. Pro-choice. You're going to do what you're going to do with your own body. That's how I feel. Whatever, how you want to feel about it. Now, imagine if I got elected for some crazy reason, and this bill comes up. Pro-choice bill. Dude, if I vote pro-choice on that bill, I'm losing my gig. That's all there is to it. And so I have to vote based on my constituency for that particular bill. Now, if something comes up with, 24-hour liquor stores or something like that, and my people don't care, I can vote that way. So remember, it's really weird. There's 3 ways of voting based on party lines, because you want to engender a certain feeling within your party and get ahead in your party and join a committee and really be a leader, right? And you can vote based on your own ideology, how you feel. Hey, I'm a grown man. I feel a certain way. I'm going to vote this way. Or you can go to the point where you vote based on constituency. And voting on constituency is like, hey, well, they're the people who vote for me, so I'm going to do what they say. So different times call for different types of voting and acting as a congressman. You guys know the deal, man. You have lobbyists all over the place. They say there are like more than 35,000 registered lobbyists trying to influence Congress, all right? And it happens all the time. And sometimes the bigger the issue, the more lobbyists working on it. And it can be ignored. And they also can be regulated. And so don't sit there and say that these people literally take control government. It doesn't happen that way all the time. Let's make sure we understand that. The lobbyists have some sort of influence, but it's not overall control and influence. Because remember, people are voting based on their party. So if the lobby is saying something that the party isn't saying, you don't vote that way. If you vote on ideology and the lobby is saying something that your ideology is saying, you don't vote that way. And if the lobby is against your constituents, you don't vote that way, because the constituents get you back every 2 years if you're a House member, right? So that's pretty much the deal. And that's it for right now. All right. Thank you, guys.